members of the committee, the Honorable Sachid Anand, Honorable Ratu Chusay Nundamu, Honorable Chone Usumate, Honorable Fayaz Square, and myself as Chairman of the committee, Ratu Rakuita Bakalalambure. You are well aware that the quarantine bill is before Parliament and it has been referred to this committee. And today we are receiving submissions from you, if you have any submissions with respect to the quarantine bill. Honorable members, I now give the floor to probably the Harbour Master or Manager Legal, who will be presenting. You have the floor then, Manager Legal. Thank you.
To the honorable members of the Justice, Law and Human Rights Standing Committee, we are very honored to be before you this morning. Representing Fiji Ports Corporation is our, as was introduced, our Harbour Master, Captain Lysia Singoniwai, and myself, the Manager Legal of Fiji Ports Corporation. Just before we go into the bill, I will just maybe for the benefit of the Standing Committee, just highlight in general what Fiji Ports Corporation is and our structure. So Fiji Ports Corporation is a national port management company and is appointed by the Seaports Management Act. We are mandated under the Act to manage ports that are declared under the Seaports Management Act, which are Suva Ports, Lautoka, Levuka, Malau, and Vunda. We have gone through various restructures over the years, so now we are a private company with shareholding structures as follows: 41% owned by the government, 39% by Fiji National Provident Fund, and 20% by Atkins Spence Limited. One of our main, I think when you talk about port and talk about productivity of the port, the main general measurement is port efficiency. So port efficiency is mostly measured through time, so how fast you are able to, how fast the vessel is able to come onto the, to berth and receive its services, offload its cargo, load its cargo, and then leave the port. So mainly that is the, in a very high sense, level sense, that is what our whole entire mandate is about at Fiji Ports. Also at Fiji Ports we have other major, we have other port authorities or authorities that have regulations within the port premises. We have the biosecurity, for example, customs, and we also have the health ministry under the Quarantine Act. So for, I think in the previous years we've had our Honorable Prime Minister who's announced on many public forums about Fiji becoming the maritime hub of the Pacific. So Fiji Ports welcomes this and is working towards this goal. And for that to also happen, there needs to be harmony and between all these port authorities that are in the that have regulatory powers or have an arm in the port services. So with that being said, we would now like to go on to provide our comments under the bill. Our bill is mainly, our comment is mainly twofold. First is into the proposed amendments, and secondly is into maybe a proposal from our end into the operations of the port, and what we propose could be also considered in the bill. As an overall comment, Fiji Ports welcomes the Quarantine Amendment Bill, and we recognize that it seeks to modernize the Act. It seeks to update definitions, streamline administrative responsibilities, and strengthen enforcement. And with that, we only have maybe two minor comments, and that is with regards to Section 3 on the appointment of the quarantine officer. We welcome the amendment to change the appointing authority from the minister to the permanent secretary. We think this enhances administrative efficiency. However, we would like to also submit, maybe if there could also be a qualifying criteria that could be also provided for in this bill or in this act. That is for what are the qualifying criteria that allows for this particular quarantine officer to be appointed. And with that, for them to maybe have a register available with maybe a distinct identification number for the purposes of the other port authorities in the port, for example, Fiji Ports. So this is critical for us because at the time being there's a stream boarding happening with our port, with the quarantine officers, and we need to have some comfort that the quarantine officers that are coming on board are qualified and are well prepared, are trained to be boarding vessels. And this is also for security purposes, for any person that goes through our port or declared ports. We have ISPS code that we need to adhere to. So this code requires for identification, and for, I think it'll be best practice for quarantine officers to have this identification and their name to be registered in some kind of register that that is transparent, so that we know that this is a person that has been appointed by the permanent secretary, is qualified to be the quarantine officer, and we have confidence that this person will be able to board the vessel safely to carry out his or her duties. The other small proposal we have is with regards to Section 7 of the which is the offences and penalties. We generally do not have any objection, and we welcome the increase in fine. However, from our end, back to what we were saying about harmonization, there are other laws as well that mandate the powers of various bodies within the port, and at times we I think there is various arguments about whose power supersedes the other. So, for example, in this case, it's talking about any person, that the word any person is used, and we are mindful that this could also apply to, for example, port authority officers who may just be wanting to carry out their duties. For example, there may be a security issue at the front premises, and the interpretation may be very wide, that it may capture our officers who are just carrying out their duties to be obstructing under this section. So that is mainly our submission with regards to the actual amendment that's being proposed. We also have, I think, with regards to the operational procedures for the quarantine clearance of vessels, I will give it to our Harbour Master to address.
Thank you, honourable members. For operation matters, all vessels calling into a declared port are required to have their vessels cleared. Currently, this clearance has been happening on the high seas, whereby quarantine officials are required to streamboard either at the pilot station or inside the harbor at the quarantine anchorage. This has been issues arising from it during adverse weather. Safety issues has been arise, and we had advised supervisors at the quarantine if it allows the process to be relooked at. Best practice internationally in the region, Fiji is the only country that is still doing streamboarding at high seas. Other agencies are boarding when the boats are secured alongside. So from that benchmark internationally, you would like if that could be reviewed operationally for the quarantine team to board once the ship is secured alongside. And on top of that, I think the requirements has been sent prior to ship's arrival, and mainly it does with the malaria ports that the vessel are coming in from. Those are one of the areas that the quarantine official have demanded their boarding at high seas, and we request if that could be looked into. For streamboarding, there's been challenges whereby boats are delayed to berth, and we request the same for boarding alongside it.
Thank you very much, Captain Ngoniwai and Ms. Wani Filipe. Honorable members, questions?
Thinking about that issue of the boats coming from malaria ports, and I can think to my mind the idea that they would want to board on the high seas is to spray to make sure that mosquitoes do not come across to land from those countries. So to my mind, if you allow the boat to dock and then spray, is there then a higher likelihood of mosquitoes, if there are, on board, of escaping onto land and then contaminate the rest of you? Because we don't have measles, malaria. We don't have malaria. So what is your thinking on that? That's the only reason I can think that they insist on boarding in the high seas.
Valuable honorable member, I think we haven't come across any delays or any stop notice on vessel coming in from malaria ports when the quarantine officer board. We haven't experienced any stoppage. The only thing that needs to be looked into the documentation from the vessel masters once they leave the malaria port. And I think those documents has to be in place for their clearance prior to arrival.
Documentation, it will say that it has been sprayed.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
If that can be cleared,
So you can rely on the spraying thing. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, with this amended regulation which we're talking about, would there be any cost implications for Ports Fiji in terms of administration of those amendments in regards to quarantine? Will there be any cost implications in terms of administration of this amended act for Ports Fiji?
Honorable Chair, maybe I will address that question. Directly, we do not see any cost implications to FPCL. However, back to our submission on on efficiency. Currently, I think the Minister of Health is the only one that's conducting onboarding. And when they conduct onboard, stream boarding, and when they do go on board, it's mainly just paperwork that they're checking. So our submission is this can be part of the pre-arrival, which which the agent submits to most other bodies. This stream boarding and I think at one stage there is also a requirement for maybe for the vessel to go to anchor, for it to be cleared by the quarantine or the Ministry of Health before it comes to berth alongside. I think it will be a time factor. So it's the time, maybe if it's another 3 hours, just to wait for that clearance, that affects the whole port system of vessels, because we already have, a multi-user port that has, vessels of requiring various services. They all come to King's Wharf or to Queen's Wharf in Lautoka. So that 3 hours, at times could really go towards our port efficiency, cause delay, and that affects our overall stance as a port, our overall productivity as a port compared to other regions in the Pacific. So I think from our standpoint, that really is our submission, is we want to make sure that in whatever areas we can improve our efficiency together nationally, let's identify that and let's see how we can be more efficient so we don't affect our overall productivity as a port. So
Thank you. If I heard correctly, one of your recommendations is that instead of boarding at high seas, you'd like the quarantine officers to board when the ship is berthed at the wharf. Now, having said that, that'll, in some instance, put the port workers at risk should there be a outbreak of disease or anything that's brought in by the foreign vessel. Now, how is Ports Fiji looking at mitigating those risks that is possessed that may appear if the ship is boarded at berth rather than the high seas?
Honorable Chair, I think for that instance, that does allow for stream boarding, but our submission is all vessels at the moment do require stream boarding, and they do require clearance out at sea. So if there is certification that has already been provided, this is the same certification that the officer goes and obtains at the vessel or in the ship. There is no other testing that they do, so it's just paperwork that they go and they receive from the master. We do not. I don't think unless there's something in the declaration from the master that says, okay, that is a bit suspicious, we need to go and check it for ourselves. We submit, yes, that does allow for that. But at the moment, it's just going on board to receive paperwork and then coming out and then providing that. So that paperwork we submit can be submitted online like the other paperwork for the other agencies. What we do submit as well is this is the practice that's going on around the world. We submit that maybe as part of the consultation to do benchmarking with other ports, maybe in the region. I think PNG is doing part of Tauranga, is doing it as well, and see what is the best practice there. Maybe we can also learn from that.
Thank you, Chair.
What you're basically saying is these people are going to check documents of certification that has already been done. So you're basically saying you trust the system. So if the system is already, there's no need for them to climb on a boat and climb up the ship because they're just checking a documentation that's all there. They don't do anything else. That's it.
As you mentioned, Honorable Chair, the spray for malaria last port. But if it's well documented, then I think they are going on board just to check and verify those documents. But that can be done once the ship is secured alongside. They are the first one to get on board and clear the vessel. And then after that, operation can begin.
Just a question, Captain Monway. Who decides where boarding is take place? Why, like, who decided for ships to be boarded in the high seas? Who decided that? Is it in the law?
Yeah.
Okay.
Only for pilots. Yeah, only for pilots.
Because I'm curious. Yeah.
But for the quarantine act, it's a quarantine anchorage inside the harbor itself.
Right.
They are supposed to board once the vessel is at the quarantine anchorage,
Okay.
not at the dock.
That's in the Quarantine Act.
Yeah. Our request, if it can be reviewed, for them to
Yeah.
board alongside.
Yeah.
To the legal officer, I mean, the way that it's defined here in section 3 is the quarantine authority is the permanent secretary, who then appoints health inspectors to be the quarantine bodies. So are you suggesting that they go through another vetting process, or just for them to have a tag to say that they are the certified health inspector come quarantine authority? I didn't really get the drift of what you're saying.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Yes, I agree with your, I think that's exactly what I'm saying. Not with another vetting process. First, to have a tag for our security purposes. And this is to be, I think, for transparency purposes, where we can maybe go to the Ministry of Health page, for example, and look at the register, or these people are the qualified and they have been vetted or accepted by the appointed by the permanent secretary to be the quarantine officers. And also a bit on the other vetting process that you were just mentioning, Honorable Chair, is I think for transparency's sake, we have, for example, Fiji ports that also, that's in the port. We have biosecurity, we have customs. It's also important that we are aware that this person is the qualified person. So for the PS to qualify a person to be the quarantine officer, there must be some criteria that we all know. For example, they've received so-and-so training, or they've worked for this number of years, so they are not. Because if that was the whole, and if this bill was to come into play, they will have a lot of powers. So with that many power, we need to know that this is the person that is qualified and well qualified under the criteria that's transparent for everyone to see.
Just a follow-up question to that. What is the current, how do they do it currently? How do health inspectors come in? They just show you, they say that they are qualified or what? How does it go about?
I think the
Just for us to have a fair understanding.
Honorable Chair, the requirement comes through the shipping agent on behalf of the shipper, and goes to the Ministry of Health and Quarantine.
Okay.
So they are billed. Everything that's supposed to be submitted is submitted by the shipping agent on their behalf.
Yeah.
And also anything to do with charges. They are also arranged for transportation if the ship comes in early in the morning. The current requirement now for boarding is 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So after 6 p.m., they close. So that's the other challenges for Port Operators here. So we can't do any operation if the ships are not cleared at 6 p.m.
If I may, to the legal officer. So you're saying that there should be a national register of quarantine people certified by the ministry, and that you could
So we know this person has correct.
qualifications, etc.
Yes, correct, Honorable Chair. I think it's just a move towards transparency and better governance. Port environment, yes, port environment is, high risk at times. So it's just important that, whoever is coming, if we are going to continue with the streamboarding, there's part of the activity is climbing the vessel, the very high vessel. We want to, our pilots and all the other port players need to be assured that, okay, this person has received the training, this person knows what he or she is doing, can board this vessel, knows.
You want to be sure they can climb the ladder.
Yes,
So effectively, a national register would work, right?
somewhat like that.
Something like that.
Yes.
And the ministry's got the register of it, and they have to be physically fit and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. Okay, understand.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Just a lead on to from the previous question. You have welcomed the appointment powers to be shifted to the Permanent Secretary, and raised issues about the qualification of quarantine officers. Have you had any issues with the system that's currently operating? Is it operating well in terms of the quarantine officers, or there has been issues that you have come across that questions their qualification or the ability to perform their duties?
I think historically our pilots have experienced, for example, officers coming in without any PPE, for example, and having to climb the vessels. So we've had to raise that with the quarantine officers, and now it's mandated that the agents provide the PPEs for the quarantine officers. So just things of that sort.
I have one additional, Chair. You talked about Section 7. Section 7 is not being amended by this bill, but it talks about offences and penalties where you had an issue with the statement any person, and you rightly said that obviously there are people from Ports Authority, but I look at the wording of Section 7(1)(a), it says people who refuse to answer, refuses or willfully omits, who assaults, resists, willfully obstructs. So that's basically saying anybody that does any of these things will be taken to task. But you're suggesting an amendment to this. Does that mean that, are you suggesting then that it's okay for certain people to be able to refuse to answer, refuses or willfully omits to do so, or assaults, resists, and willfully obstructs? I didn't get what you're trying to get at in the, if you're going to amend that bit, what would it be?
Honorable Chair, our submission is the word any person was a bit too general. Maybe we need to further define what the word refuse means, what willfully means in this area. For example, if we have an officer that has come through the gate at port, a qualified quarantine officer that has been appointed. This is just a hypothetical scenario, and this person does not carry the ID. So we have, strict ISPS code and laws that we need to follow. If you do not have an ID, you can't come through a port. And this person maybe says, I've been through here 100 times before. You should let me, I'm here to do my job. But we have strict regulations as well that we need to follow. So in here we see a contradiction. This.
You're saying when you're trying to follow the requirements of
Under
those
our laws.
protocols, you could be construed as willfully obstructing.
It could become, yes, it could be read as that under other laws. So we're saying there, our submission really is, there's a few laws that are at play when you come to port. maybe when we are looking at an amendment, we should look at all these laws together, just to make sure that they're all in harmony, they're harmonizing, instead of contradicting. So there should be consultation further in that area.
Just on the back of that, do you not think that currently, as you say, with Section 7, it says any person who, and I'll stick to B, any person who, and using the example that you've actually given, somebody turns up without his badge or whatever to do the inspection and says, I've been in here 100 times, but does that not authorize you at the end of the day? Because it says any person who refuses or willfully omits to do any act which he or she is required to do by this act. So is it in the act that you must carry that badge around? You are entitled to actually take them to task. Or refuses or willfully omits to carry out any lawful order, instruction or condition made or given or imposed by any officer or other person acting under the authority of this act. The reason why I say that is because that in its generality covers a whole lot more than when you start becoming specific. You understand what I'm saying? It gives you a lot of authority as the governor, as they speak, of the ports. That actually allows you to do something. So if somebody turns up, you can be your best friend. Say, I'm sorry. The regulations say no badge, no entry. Right? Because your badge is your key to go inside. And that's in the act. So there may be other things in there that you might want to change because the act is old, to say that if you, in terms of the offense itself, like the badge carrying, whatever. But I think that in its generality covers it. Do you disagree or?
Honorable Chair, I do agree that, generality needs to cover for, a lot of things.
Scenarios,
That, scenarios that can't really be covered. You can't account for each and every single scenario, which is why you need to have these kind of things. But on the flip side, we can see these things at times they're taken advantage of, and they're very, very wide. At least maybe for case by case. So, for example, this is the Quarantine Act. It has to do with entry into a port. Maybe have consultation with these other players, the customs, the biosecurity, and Fiji ports, to say, okay, we want to put this. This is what our law is saying. What do you say? Then maybe we will say, okay, have something that mentions the Seaports Management Act, and that has respect for the Seaports Management Act and what we regulate. Just a subject to, or in consultation with, something like that.
So effectively you're saying by being more specific, you're creating less argument.
So I said, you
Yes?
did not have this consultation with the drafters of this?
Not to my knowledge, Honorable Chair.
Because I would have assumed that those things, if you had consultations,
We would have definitely raised it.
I see your point that, the one that I just pointed out, at the end of the day, people can say, where is it? It's not specifically referring to this. So by being specific, you're going to create less argument. That's what you're saying. Okay.
can I just have one last one, Chair? One of the things we talked about when we were talking about this bill earlier is that people don't meet the requirements, and then there were some things that they have to pay a penalty, and then they don't pay. And there were some suggestions to keep the boats here until they pay. What are your thoughts on that?
So maybe back to the point of consultation prior to coming to Parliament would have been key, because FPCL does have powers to hold a vessel. However, detain a vessel. However, only under the powers under the Seaports Management Act, under our act, under unpaid. Yes, exactly, Chair. So, when we're all talking, we can talk about these things. So, okay, maybe we can also amend the Seaports Management Act, where if there's an issue with non-payment, we can ask the Fiji ports to detain the vessel, because at the moment there's statutory powers with Fiji ports to detain a vessel. I think everyone else has to do the usual ship arrest through court. Yeah.
We only talk about customs, having that power, but this is new. Does your seaports management extend to yacht clubs and their berthing and all that?
I think yacht clubs, it comes under pleasure craft, and that is handled by MSF.
Honorable Nand?
Thank you, Chair. Just a question. In terms of quarantine management, has Ports Fiji come across in the recent times or in the recent history any instance where there has been a laxity in the implementation of the quarantine requirements in the ports? And if so, how was it handled?
In terms of operation, going back to stream body, the process that is followed in Suva is totally different from what is practiced in Lautoka. Yes. We're requesting if both process can be harmonized from quarantine agencies.
Process
What the
for-
processes are?
For body.
Oh.
Like in Lautoka, the quarantine officers board with a pilot, and they go right out to a pilot station, which is about 27 miles out. And they do their boarding there. We're requesting if they could be done in the port boundary or alongside.
What's the rationale between the two different systems?
I think that question, Honorable Chair, we have to probably seek the advice from quarantine, why the two processes are different.
Okay.
If I may, Chair?
Yeah, please, Honorable.
Just lastly, I see your point about, because this is quite old, I see your point about harmonization of a lot of things. And of course, there's admiralty laws, etc., that exist, and jurisdictional stuff as the international maritime laws, etc., all of that. So are you suggesting that the time has really come for us to harmonize all this so we don't have that issue? Yeah? Is that what you're saying?
100%, Chair. That is what we're saying, not only with this act, the other acts, the acts with the FRCS, with biosecurity, harmonization of our laws is really, I think, timely now. Yeah. And also, just that national goal of achieving port efficiency. If we can all harmonize and see where we can be most efficient individually and together, I think nationally we'll achieve something great.
Relatively, I mean, as you talked about, time is everything when ports are competing against each other, in, out quickly, less cost and all that. How do you fare against, say, Tauranga or others in the Pacific? This is completely left field. I just want to know.
If, Honorable Chair, if we have to compare, then it's a good time now to review our processes, our procedures, because I think this is one of the challenges we are facing at the moment. We are dealing with international customers, and when they come to our shores, they see that our processes, our procedures are still outdated. So, just a request, if we can do a benchmarking, probably take 2 or 3 major ports in the region and benchmark out from Tauranga, Port of Tauranga, which is a transit port in the Pacific for the region. Yeah.
Is that an exercise you do?
Ports have been doing that for most of our reviews. Now we can probably suggest.
We have to do 2 things. We have to make sure that you're competitive, but keep Fiji safe. It's
No? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, honorable members. Join me in thanking the submittees this afternoon from PG Ports, Ms. Felipe and Mr. Onwai, thank you very much for coming in this afternoon and sharing your thoughts on the bill. Just one final question for information of the committee. Did Ministry of Health consult you when they were preparing to make amendments to the quarantine bill? Just for our information, because we'll be meeting them shortly after this. Did they consult you about these amendments?
If it's from the last 4 years, not to our knowledge.
Okay. So so honorable members, take note of that.
That ship port, what?
Seaports Management
So
Act.
was it the CMC ports management before the 4 years, or was it something that's amended recently within that 4-year period?
Chair, this is from 2005.
So it's been there for some
yeah.
time. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much. And please, just before you leave, if we can just have a photo in the middle of the horseshoe here for Parliament page, Parliament records. Honorable members, please don't run away. We still have to sit again. So long day today. Thank you.